Hi everyone, it's Ashley Angeline Kumar, the Confidence Coach. I'm a Master Certified Parenting Coach and a Self-Esteem and Self-Confidence Coach for kids. We are doing video number 2 on developmental information for kids aged 5 to 8. And this is the developmental information interpreted by the Confidence Coach. And I come from a trauma-informed background, a parenting background, and a kid self-esteem, self-confidence background. So the approach you're going to get from me is very much geared towards how to raise resilient children, knowing the developmental information we need to know to be able to set them up for success in their personal, social, emotional life experience. Cool? All right. So in video number 1, if you haven't checked that out, please do, okay, and leave your comments, and be sure to subscribe. And we're going to continue. So in video number 1, we left off at how thinking for this age group can be kind of black and white. Like everything's concrete. If they decided they can't, then they can't, right? And so we've got to be able to find ways to help them understand that there are other possibilities. And if the child's thinking is black and white at this stage, at this developmental age between 5 and 8, then simply expecting them to have that flexible thinking or to change their mind or to be able to think differently can be a challenge. And so although we introduce concepts around growth mindset and we introduce concepts around the idea of choices in how we act and behave and think and feel, okay, the expectation that they're going to get it in a week or 2 or a month or a year even may not be reasonable depending on your child. And that's something important that I should give you the caveat to for this video as well, that children develop at different ages, the process of developing is different for each child, unique from child to child, and your traumas, your life experiences, all the neurodivergence, all this stuff is going to impact how a child develops. Cool? So this is a generalized kind of a developmental ages and stages breakdown interpreted by me on more of a social emotional lens, trauma-informed lens. So coming to you with that information. Cool. Let's continue. So kids at this age, 5 to 8-ish, are easily motivated and eager to try something new. Okay, so what does that mean for us? They're easily motivated to try something new. Now you're thinking, easily motivated to do what I ask them to do? I don't think so. Right? Okay. So this is more on the exploratory side of things. Now, if you think about it, age 5 to 8, there's so much to learn and explore. You're finally in a place where, you know, you're out of toddlerhood, and there feels like there's a little more control in the world of how we show up when you're 5 to 8 years old, right? And so this is a beautiful time for exploration. And I think it's incredibly traumatizing for children when their exploration tendencies are shut down. That's really hard for children because they have a natural instinctive way to want to explore their world, to learn more about it, to make sense of information that's coming into their mind-body system. And so they also, let's also put this out there too, that they're impulsive. So they might want to do one activity for a little while and then move on to another and then another, and when they see something new, ooh, let's go do that. Let's try that out. It's like taking your 5-year-old to, we went to a Midway today, like an old-time Midway. Let's do that. And then you finish one ride. Let's go there. Let's do that. Let's do that. So it's like, and this could be triggering for some parents. It's like, whoa, too much overwhelm. And especially if you're a parent who has a background or history of trauma or unresolved trauma or anxiety. This can be incredibly like, whoa, a little overwhelming. Hold on, calm down. And this can cause us to say stuff to our children to attempt to control their energy that's coming out of them and the words and the different directions they might be going in and pulling us along with. And that can be challenging. And so it's important to, I'm moving too much. My camera went blurry. Sorry about that. Let me stop moving so much. This can be challenging. And we also get to know, as we parent these kids, that this is developmentally appropriate. And so harping on them or shutting them down or telling them to quote unquote behave, or telling them that they should be other than who they actually are, which is this exploratory person figuring out this world and really eager and excited to try different things, we would be doing them a disservice, right? And this is where I get to come in and help parents, because I do help parents navigate this, that I get to support them in figuring out how not to try to control that part of that child and their development, but how do we ease them into different ways, the parent into different ways of managing what's happening for them. And when we manage what's happening for us as parents, we're able to then show up differently in our relationship with our children. So this is really, 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 really key. Okay, so when you're working with kids, and when I say working, parenting is hard work, right? Parenting is hard work. And so I call it working with kids because I work with kids, but I work with my own kids too. And I'm working on coaching them and teaching them and stuff. So with this age group, having a variety of activities available to them is great. And we do a toy rotation in my house, right? You might have older kids and this won't be applicable, but we do a toy rotation. So we don't have like 1,600 toys available. We kind of rotate through. And what's really cool about this toy rotation thing that we have is it feels like Christmas to them. Even though they've played with it before, let's say it's Magic Sand or Play-Doh, we keep them up on top of our cupboards up high, and we bring it to their awareness. Hey, did you guys want to do one of those today? And they'll like get so excited about doing it because they haven't done it maybe in a week or two or a week and a half. And it's really actually really fun for them, even though they might have already worked with that particular toy or something many times. So it's really interesting. So having a wide variety of activities available, but not all at the same time. Because then there's a lot of things that can happen, and I won't go into too much detail because then I'll be going on tangents. But when there's too much information and a system, I'm going to call it sensory system overload, too many options, it can be almost draining for the mind-body system and actually reduce interest in the toys that are actually present if there are so many to choose from, or if they're scattered everywhere, or if they're they don't make sense anymore because all the pieces of everything are mixed up with other things, and it just doesn't seem as, like when you see a really nice put together brand new box of Lego and you're like, oh yeah, right? But if you see Lego mixed in with doll heads and army figures and pieces of paper and crayons, it's just like not as enticing as this brand new shiny box of Legos over there. So something to consider when you're planning activities for your kids and making toys and things like that accessible in your home. When you are working with your kids, when you're trying to do different activities, whether you're doing something related to social emotional learning, proprioceptive information, interoceptive yoga, you want to do physical yoga, we do yoga at our house, we do meditation, but we keep it short. And we kind of have an objective. What's the objective? And keep it simple. Keep your objective simple. Don't make it too complicated. Like, we're going to do this and it's got to be like turn out exactly the way we want it to turn out. Or, like let's say meditation, for example. The point of meditation is to be quiet, to be still, to rest, to clear your mind, to breathe. Like, that's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. What if we set up just one little objective of why perhaps we're doing meditation? It could be from as simple as just exposing them to meditation. It could be as simple as, let's take 5 minutes together as a family to just chill out and tune out. And we use guided meditation, so we'll just use something that just guides us and we're just listening. And my kids might last, they're 5 to, my daughter's 6, my son is 3. And they might last a minute or two with calming and regulating and breathing. And by the way, calming and regulating and breathing are things we practice outside of meditation too. So So just to let you know, so it's really short pieces that we're putting forward, which are developmentally appropriate for this age group, rather than expecting them to do a 10-minute meditation and not move or not talk or not interrupt or not, So this is where we talk about, are we expecting more from our children than they are developmentally able to provide or show up as, right? This is really important because if you think back to like grade one, we had a teacher who, would get really upset for moving, wiggling, anything like that. And this is back in my day, right? Maybe not today. Back in my day, she just took her meter stick. Remember a meter stick? And she'd slam it on our desk. Scared the bejesus out of us. And also taught us to ignore what was happening in our bodies. So just wanted to, totally went off on a tangent there, didn't I? So let's move on to the next one. So deal with the here and now, and what does that mean? Deal with the here and the now. They want to focus on what they're focusing on in the moment. So this can make transitions difficult for this age group, or challenging. So if they're working on building a Lego and it's like, okay, it's dinner time. I go through this, right? Okay, it's dinner time. That transition is like, whoa, hold on. No, I wanna be here and I want to finish this, right? It's like transition times can be difficult. And so building in transitions between activities throughout the day. So if they're watching TV show, that's a big one, right? Watching a screen, we need to give them transition time. So what does that mean? Maybe you give them a 5-minute, hey, we're going to turn it off in 5 minutes. Or we use a timer when the timer beeps, so they've gotten really used to using a timer. But your children may need human voice-to-voice connection, voice-to-ear, I guess, connection, touch and calm presence and connection before they can transition easily into the next activity. So that I want to touch on that. And then interest span is short. So if we're like trying to teach our kid in this age group something and we're lecturing them and we're just like going on and on and on and on and on and on and on, they're gonna tune out. All that energy you're spending to lecture this child won't go anywhere. Why is it because they're willfully trying not to listen to you, not understand you, not hear you? No, it's because they're literally, the logical processing part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is the last part of the brain in human babies to develop, and so it's still developing and will continue developing into the age of 25. So if we're expecting them to sit there and listen to us lecture them for 5 minutes or even 2 minutes, which is a really long time for this age group, and it's not something like they can watch a TV show and watch it for half an hour, right? But to hear their parent lecture them, there's so many things going on nervous system level wise. If maybe, and every child's different, maybe it's going into freeze mode, like, okay, I'm just gonna shut up now and tune out. So they don't actually hear what you're saying. It could be that they go into fight mode where they just don't even want to hear what you have to say if you're going on too long. It could be that they go into flight mode. They want to get away from you. Like, okay, will this person just like stop talking? And so if we're going on and we're lecturing and we're trying to teach them something through this lecture process, it probably won't go very far. So if you're trying to teach them, I talked about it in video 1, is multisensory learning, playful parenting, and implementing those strategies, and keep it short and concise. And this can be challenging. I'm a recovering perfectionist, so it's like I want to explain it all in detail. And I need to keep in mind their developmental age and stage so that it can be an effective communication exchange rather than me going on and on and on and they've tuned out already, right? And every child's different, so different children will have different attention spans. All right, great. Let's go to the next one. They are curious of their world. I kind of already touched on that. They're naturally curious, and so, I think of times when children ask questions in this age group that can sound rude to outsiders, to people outside of our family, to people in general, like, oh, why is your hair so curly? Why is your skin black or brown, really dark brown? How come your skin's different than mine? Or, these really curious questions that we may not have broached these topics yet, in the home or in the family yet. So this is where, I've heard different parents in different situations be like, don't ask that question. Oh my gosh, that's rude. We're going to talk about this when we go home. Okay. And then the child's like, what? Huh? Like, whoa, I've just been reprimanded for asking a question. Now I want to say that again. I've been reprimanded for asking a question. So what does that do long term? Like, if this continues as a pattern that somebody kind of shuts you down when you show curiosity, eventually it's going to dampen the child's curiosity. They're going to stop asking questions. I might just be shut down. Or let me go to a safe place, safe person who I think I can ask, and they won't shut me down. But maybe it's not my parent anymore. So that's really tricky. And we want to be aware that they are naturally curious, and they're not intentionally trying to be rude. They're not intentionally trying to, I'm part of different parenting groups on Facebook, and some parents will share these long stories about, how do I get my child to stop saying this or asking this kind of question when she's out in a mall and shopping center of other people, like, why are you so fat, or why are you so tall, or why? They're just naturally curious. And when we can understand that in this age range, this is totally developmentally normal, because they're trying to make sense of what information is coming into their mind-body system. We call it information stimulus, right? Like, whatever information is coming in and that they're processing and they don't know the answer for it, but they're curious to know, they might ask it. And this can be a very important time for kids, and a challenging time for parents when we perceive the child's questions as rude, or something we don't do, or something we don't ask. Yeah? Okay. Whew. Man, time goes by fast. Or do I just talk a lot? Okay. You can comment and let me know. I won't be offended. All right. Sensitive. They are sensitive, and they might have trouble when they make a mistake or fail at something. They can find it distressing. And this makes sense when you go back to video 1, where we talked about concrete thinking or black and white kind of thinking. This makes sense, right? This makes sense that they, because of that type of processing, they might have some sensitivity to criticism. They might not accept failure very well. I know my 3-year-old already, he shows exhibits, and he's not in this age group 5 to 8, but he exhibits extreme frustration when he's not able to do something that he has done several times, or that he's still learning to do, and instantly goes to the black and white, I can't process. And we are doing the work of giving him alternate phrases he can use, and we are doing that, and he's doing a great job trying to implement them. And the expectation is that he's not going to be perfect at implementing these new empowering phrases we're offering him, because developmentally it just wouldn't be appropriate for him. We can give him grace and empathy for his experience instead. Okay, so sensitive to criticism, which means that the child, how we approach feedback with the children this age matters. How we approach feedback with children this age matters. I work with schools, and I do presentations in schools, and something that's really important to me is, creating trauma-sensitive classrooms. And when you think back, my story that I told you about being in grade 1 and the teacher slamming her meter stick on the desk, that's a great way for children to internalize what's happening. Or it's another way to show criticism, except you're showing it through a physical, violent behavior. So it's still showing the child what you're doing is not right enough for me and my teacher, me as a teacher. That's kind of what the teacher was telling us, or she wasn't telling us that, but she message we were internalizing was that. Okay, so the approach we take when we're providing feedback to our children really, really matters. And I teach and coach parents on a beautiful process of communication that helps you do this. Give your child feedback, but in a loving, empathic way. And it's beautiful and works brilliantly. And I help parents with that. Okay, Let's do one more and then we'll continue on next time. Okay. Sorry, let's finish that one up actually. Positive encouragement and assistance is important, and what we don't want to do is I kind of integrate the Montessori philosophy here, that don't do for the child what the child can do for themselves, in the sense that children at this age are still exploring, they will be exploring autonomy until age 25, but they definitely, as they explore their world, want to know what they can do. This is time. This is the time they need to know and develop belief in themselves. So if as parents we're constantly trying to do things for them, or fixing situations, or removing challenges and obstacles from their path, they don't get to realize that they can handle certain situations in life. So positive encouragement also includes, it includes as a parent being able to watch the child do things imperfectly. Watch the child attempt at something and possibly struggle with it for a little while, and maybe problem solve it themselves. And here is where I come in with my work as a self-esteem and self-confidence coach, is to help kids get comfortable with asking for help, and to give them phrases that they can use and feel comfortable using, to be able to solicit help from others, and knowing that it's completely 100% okay to ask for help. Something that's celebrated very much in our society is independence. When a child does it on their own, we get so excited. You did it on your own. Yay. Awesome. Amazing. You did it on your own. But when a child asks for help, especially if a parent's busy or a teacher's busy or there's a lot going on, we don't show that same kind of celebration attitude, do we? So the child learns that, hey, when I do things on my own, I am better. When I have to ask for help, I'm in the way. I'm a bit of a nuisance. I'm troubling somebody, or internalizing, why can't I? What's wrong with me that I can't do it, right? So really, really important. And this isn't conscious, by the way. These are not at 5 to 8 years old. This wouldn't be like conscious processing that they are thinking these thoughts. They're just internalizing the messages they're receiving from the adults around them. Cool, makes sense? If you have questions about that, let me know. And so let's move on to 2 more, and then we're going to finish this age group up, okay? They have a strong desire for affection and attention from adults, right? What's really interesting is this age group, I say from age 2, you can see the strong need for autonomy and independence developing in little people. And this continues for a very, very long time. But they still very, 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 very much need their adults, their people, their parents, their caregivers, and have a strong desire for affection and attention of those people. And when affection and attention is withdrawn in different contexts, especially challenging contexts like I mentioned earlier, when a child asks for help, if we withdraw, this can be very difficult for a child. So developmentally, they have a strong desire for affection and attention, and they're exploring still their dependence on adults and independence within themselves and what they can do. So learning to develop self-belief at this age. So crucial. And I'm a self-esteem, self-confidence coach, so this is big. This is really big. And what they start to believe by this age, in this age group, about who they are and what they can physically, mentally, emotionally do, will impact them in the preteen years, which is typically 8 to 12 is what we consider preteen. So yeah, it's really important. Okay. Being able to give them the affection and attention they need in a loving, empathic way is going to be important. And this can be difficult for parents, especially different ethnic cultures where this just isn't really a thing. You don't show affection to your kids. I grew up with an affectionate dad, but as soon as I hit puberty, it changed. And my mother in general, she was not that affectionate overall. And I definitely could have used a lot more especially during challenging times is when I definitely needed affection and attention more. So just to put that into context, how do we show up for our children when it comes to affection and attention? And affection can be physical, touch, hugs, kisses. It can also be the eye contact, the gaze that you use, the tone of voice that you use with your child that shows them you are giving them love, like a kind of, without actually having to touch them, but like, yeah, I hear you, or empathy, or helping them get their needs met around being seen and being heard and being understood, right? So your voice prosody, like what are we using in our tonality of our voice that helps them experience affection even if we're not touching them. This is why phone calls, how do you talk to them on the phone, maybe when you're on a trip or when you're away on vacation or something like that, away from your kids. This all really matters. And so when it comes to this, this is where having that children at this age group will, go out and explore and then want to come back a little bit, maybe for a bit, or show you something, or show you how they can do something. This is really common. My daughter's 6, so she falls into this age group. Hey, Mom, look at what I can do. Hey, Mom, look at what I can do. So this is important. And I want to intersect with something that they're looking for approval as well. What we want to be mindful of is the words of approval we're using. What kind of language are we using when we're giving them approval? And I literally coach parents on this exact thing, because there is some kinds of approval that can land us in negative outcomes. So I actually help parents understand what are those phrases and words that can cause negative outcomes. So if you're interested in learning that, feel free to reach out to me. But offering them that kind of approval that they need, and following up with this. You ready for it? Following up with, how do you feel about it? How do you feel when you did this? How did you feel when you accomplished that? How do you feel when you're doing this? So my daughter will come and show me, look what I can do, and she'll do some funky thing. I'm like, cool, how do you feel when you do that? Neat. I see how you're trying, or putting your foot like that. That's really cool. How are you feeling when you do that? So I'm getting them to tap into their emotions and also their felt sense, like what's going on in your body. Yeah, cool. And in the same vein of approval, they're kind of looking for understanding of, what are my standards? Like what's going on? Like what do people expect of me? And what do I expect of myself? And how much belief shall I have in myself? None of this is conscious. This is all like the way they develop and the way that their mind is trying to create understanding of who they are and the world around them. And so that approval piece is going to be, something they look for quite often. What's really important is to, again, reinstill in them the idea that, what matters more is not what everybody else thinks of you, but what you feel and experience and understand about yourself when you're doing a certain thing, right? So, and we want to be mindful of certain words like, evaluative phrases, good, great, excellent, because there are times when it might not be good, great, or excellent. And in those moments when it's not, and we're giving them a different label, well, that was okay, or that was fine, or it wasn't that good, then there is a strong tendency for little people in this age group to internalize those words. This is why it's so important. I call it the family language of empowerment, and to really start to develop that. And what does that sound like? All right, feel free to reach out if you're looking for support. We will move on in video 3 to look at ages 9 to 11, which is middle school, like middle childhood, and we will explore a little bit more about that. Okay, all right. Feel free to reach out to me if you need to go through more and you need support as a parent. This is me being my flamboyant self. I'm a little calmer in my sessions with clients. And don't forget to subscribe and leave me your comments. Thanks for watching.